Welcome to our cozy corner of the internet, where learning English is a warm and comforting experience. I'm Liam, and I'm here with my friend Emma.
Hi everyone, we're so glad you're joining us today. Picture this in your mind. You're sitting in a quiet cafe, surrounded by the soothing sounds of gentle chatter and the of freshly brewed coffee. You're about to embark on a journey to transform your English, and we're here to guide you every step of the way.
That sounds like the perfect setting to learn and grow. Before we dive in, we just want to remind you to subscribe to our podcast, like, and share it with your friends who are also learning English. We'd love to hear from you, so please take a moment to answer this reflection challenge in the comments. One small change I can make to improve my English is on.
Exactly, and to add to that, we want to encourage you to be kind to yourselves throughout this journey. Learning a language can be challenging, but with the right mindset and support, you can achieve your goals. Which brings us to our topic for today, small changes that can transform your English.
Yeah, I have to say, I've been there myself. I used to struggle with consistent practice, and I'd often find myself making excuses for not studying. But then I realized that even tiny daily tweaks can lead to significant improvements over time.
I think so many people know exactly how that feels, Liam. It's easy to get discouraged when we're not seeing immediate results. But the truth is, language learning is a marathon, not a sprint. And it's the small, incremental changes that can make all the difference.
Right, and that's what we want to explore today. So, let's start with the first point, building a growth attitude. What does that mean to you, Emma?
Well, I think it means being open to learning, embracing challenges, and viewing failures as opportunities for growth. It's about believing that our abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work.
Exactly. And to add to that, it's also about being kind to ourselves when we make mistakes. I mean, think about it, Emma. When we're learning a new language, we're going to stumble, we're going to mispronounce words, and we're going to use incorrect grammar. But that's all part of the process.
Yeah, and it's so important to remember that everyone learns at their own pace. Just because someone else seems to be picking it up faster doesn't mean we're not making progress. Incremental progress, no matter how small, is still progress.
That's a great point, Emma. Now, let's talk about ditching excuses. What are some common excuses people when it comes to learning English, and how can we overcome them?
Oh, I know, Liam. I've been guilty of making excuses myself. One of the most common ones is, I have time. But the truth is, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. It's about prioritizing our time and making language learning a non-negotiable part of our daily routine.
Yeah, and another excuse people make is, I'm too old to learn a new language. But that's just not true. I've met people in their 60s and 70s who are learning English and doing amazingly well.
Exactly, and it's all about mindset. If we believe we can do it, we can, and if we don't, well, then we're already setting ourselves up for failure. So, let's talk about taking action even when we're not motivated. What are some strategies we can use to get ourselves moving?
Well, one thing that works for me is setting small, achievable goals. If I know I have to study for a certain amount of time each day, it makes it feel less overwhelming. And then, of course, there's the power of accountability. Having a study buddy or joining a language learning community can be a great motivator.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to find ways to make language learning enjoyable, whether it's watching TV shows or movies in English, listening to music, or reading books. We should find activities that bring us joy and make the process feel less like a chore.
Right, and that brings us to the topic of sustainable habits. What are some habits we can develop to support our language learning journey, and how can we make them stick?
Well, one habit that's been helpful for me is creating a routine. I try to study at the same time every day so it becomes a habit. And I also try to review what I've learned regularly so it doesn't feel like I'm starting from scratch every time.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to be consistent. If we're consistent in our practice, we'll see progress, and that will motivate us to keep going. And then, of course, there's the importance of self-reflection. We need to take time to evaluate our progress, identify areas for improvement, and adjust our strategy accordingly.
Exactly. And that's where overcoming hurdles comes in. What are some common obstacles people face when learning English, and how can we overcome them?
Well, one obstacle people often face is feeling overwhelmed by the sheer amount of vocabulary they need to learn. But the truth is, we don't need to learn everything at once. We can start with small, manageable chunks and build from there.
Yeah, and another obstacle people face is struggling with grammar rules. But the key is to practice, practice, practice. The more we use the language, the more natural it will become.
Right, and that brings us to the topic of language learning strategies. What are some effective strategies we can use to improve our English, and how can we apply them in our daily lives?
Well, one strategy that's been helpful for me is using flashcards to learn new vocabulary. I also try to practice active listening by listening to podcasts or audiobooks in English.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to focus on pronunciation. If we can pronounce words correctly, it will make a big difference in how confident we feel when speaking English.
Exactly, and that's where the power of positive self-talk comes in. We need to be kind to ourselves and believe in our abilities. If we don't, we'll never reach our full potential.
Yeah, and that's so true. Now, let's talk about finding a language learning community. What are some ways we can connect with other learners, and how can that support our journey?
Well, one way is to join online language learning communities like Facebook groups or Reddit forums. We can also attend language exchange events or find a language partner to practice with.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to find a community that supports and motivates us. If we're surrounded by people who believe in us, we'll be more likely to stay on track.
Exactly, and that's where the power of accountability comes in. If we have someone to report to, someone who will check in with us regularly, it will help us stay motivated and focused.
Right, and that brings us to the topic of tracking progress. How can we measure our progress, and what tools can we use to stay on track?
Well, one way is to keep a language learning journal. We can write down what we've learned, what we're struggling with, and what our goals are. We can also use language learning apps like Duolingo to track our progress.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to set milestones. If we have specific goals in mind, it will give us something to work towards and help us stay motivated.
Exactly, and that's where the power of celebration comes in. We need to celebrate our successes, no matter how small they may seem. If we don't, we'll never feel like we're making progress.
Yeah, and that's so true. Now, let's move on to the word tour. We're going to review some vocabulary that we've used in this episode and provide you with examples and explanations to help you understand them better.
Sounds like a plan, Liam. Let's start with the word incremental. Incremental means happening or done in small stages rather than all at once. For example, the company made incremental changes to their business model, which led to significant growth over time. Or, I've been making incremental progress in my English learning journey, and I can see the difference it's making.
Repeat, incremental.
Next up is the word sustainable. Sustainable means able to be maintained or supported at a certain level without depleting natural resources or causing harm to the environment. For example, the new sustainable energy source is expected to reduce carbon emissions significantly. Or, I'm trying to develop sustainable habits in my language learning routine so I can maintain it in the long term.
Repeat, sustainable.
The next word is hurdles. Hurdles refer to obstacles or challenges that need to be overcome. For example, the athlete faced many hurdles in her training, but she persevered and won the competition. Or, I've been facing hurdles in my English learning journey, but I'm determined to overcome them.
Repeat, hurdles.
Then there's the word deprived. Deprived means lacking something, especially something that is necessary or desirable. For example, the children were deprived of their childhood due to poverty and lack of access to education. Or, I felt deprived of the opportunity to practice my English when I was living in a non-English speaking country.
Repeat, deprived.
The next word is prioritize. Prioritize means to decide which things are most important and to deal with them first. For example, I need to prioritize my tasks for the day so I can get everything done on time. Or, I've been prioritizing my language learning, and it's made a big difference in my progress.
Repeat, prioritize.
Then there's the word accountability. Accountability refers to the state of being accountable or responsible for something. For example, the company has been held accountable for their actions and they're facing serious consequences. Or, I've been looking for someone to hold me accountable for my language learning progress so I can stay motivated.
Repeat, accountability.
The next word is milestone. Milestone refers to a significant event or achievement in a person's life or career. For example, getting married was a major milestone in my life and it's brought me a lot of joy. Or reaching an intermediate level in English is a milestone for me and I'm proud of myself for achieving it.
Repeat, milestone.
Then there's the word celebration. Celebration refers to the act of celebrating something, usually with special activities or events. For example, the team celebrated their victory with a big party. Or, I'm planning to celebrate my language learning progress with a trip to an English-speaking country.
Repeat, celebration.
Next up is the word positive. Positive means having a good or optimistic attitude, or being confident and enthusiastic. For example, I've been trying to maintain a positive attitude, even when faced with challenges. Or, the teacher's positive feedback helped me to feel more confident in my abilities.
Repeat, positive.
The final word is self-reflection. Self-reflection refers to the act of thinking carefully about your own thoughts, feelings, and experiences. For example, I've been doing some self-reflection and I realized that I need to work on my time management skills. Or, self-reflection has helped me to identify areas for improvement in my language learning, and I'm making progress as a result.
Repeat, self-reflection.
And that's it for today's word tour. We hope you found it helpful and that you'll be able to use these words in your own language learning journey.
Yeah, and before we go, we just want to remind you to be kind to yourselves and to celebrate your successes, no matter how small they may seem. You're doing a great job, and we're proud of you.
Exactly, and don't forget to take care of yourselves too. Learning a language can be challenging, but it's also a rewarding and enriching experience. So, keep going and don't give up.
Yeah, and if you have any questions or topics you'd like to discuss, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're always here to help.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye for now, and happy learning.